With the halfway point just around the corner, let's take an early look at this year's possible selections for the All-Star Game. Coming up next on Beat the Odds. Don't go anywhere. Hello, sports fans. Welcome back to another episode of Beat the Odds. We're going to take a look at the 2022-2023 All-Star Game and see who we think deserves a spot on those squads here. I've got 24 names to go through here, 12 from each side. We are going to start in the East with who I think are going to be starters in this year's All-Star Game. We will start, of course, over in Milwaukee. You can't have an All-Star Game right now without Giannis. Averaging 31 points per game, 11 rebounds, 5.2 assists on 53% from the field, 64% from the line. Tossing a block a game in there as well. Not quite peak Giannis that we've seen in years past, and of course he's struggling with that free throw percentage. Usually is able to offer some more defensive stats, but I think just the overall play and how the system's played around him, and he's amongst his team's amongst the tops in the league. You can't not have Giannis in the All-Star Game here for this year. Up next in Boston, we have Jason Tatum. 30.2 points per game, 8.2 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 47% from the field, 86% from the line, 1.1 steals per game there as well. Similar to Giannis, right now Jason Tatum is the face, or co-face at the very least, of potentially one of the best teams in the league this year for Boston. Holds down the fort. The game completely changes once he gets in on the court here, so you can't have an All-Star Game here without Jason Tatum. Up next, another lock here for me, Kevin Durant for the Brooklyn Nets. 30.4 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 57% from the field, 92% from the line, 1.6 blocks. What can you say about this guy? The percentages speak for themselves. He's 57% from the field on someone who is frequently double teamed. It has to shoot over defenders, just to get that type of percentage there. Speaks to the skill that he brings year after year. And still at 30 points per game here, he is elite and well deserving of a spot on the All-Star team here this year. Up next in Philadelphia, we have Joel Embiid. 33 points per game, 9.9 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 53% from the field, 85% from the line. 1.2 steals and 1.5 blocks per game there as well. So he's playing on both the offensive and defensive end. He's leading the league in points per game. There's, again, not much more you can say why he's deserving of a spot. Probably one of the few big men, true big men in the league who can also stretch the floor. He wears a lot of hats and he wears them well. Joel Embiid, for sure, deserving of a starting spot on this year's All-Star team. And then last spot here, a little bit controversial, but I'm going to go to Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton. 19.5 points per game, 4.0 rebounds, 10.7 assists, 47% from the field, 88% from the line. Toss in 1.7 steals there as well per game. You're looking at a player who has found a home in Indiana and is making that team way better than it should be. They are currently in that play-in kind of spot there, and that couldn't have happened without, of course, Tyrese Halliburton. Well deserving of a nod, and I think he is potentially, my apologies to Trae Young, he might be the best pure point guard in the league here right now in terms of assists. So I think he's well deserving of a spot on the All-Star team, and I think, just as a good feel-good story, I think he might be your pick to start in that game. One thing of note here for Halliburton as well is 3.96 assists to turnover ratio is phenomenal, especially for somebody who has the ball in his hands as much as he does. I think there's a spot where he had 40 assists and no turnovers in a 3-game span, which that's just unheard of. You don't see that kind of stuff. So Tyrese, he's well deserving. I think he should have a spot here in the starting lineup here for the East for this season's All-Star Game. Let's take a look at some reserves here as well. Donovan Mitchell is going to lead us off here in Cleveland. 29.3 points per game, 3.8 assists, 4.4 3.8 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 51% shooting from the field, 89% from the line, 1.3 steals as well. We're looking at somebody who has fit in real nicely here in Cleveland, embracing the culture. He's a big part, of course, of that rotation. The premier scorer, facilitates a little bit, but he's not really counted on for as much of that here, of course, with Darius Garland kicking around here. So he's more free to explore his offense, and he does it at a really high clip. 51% shooting for a guard is not something you see very often, so congrats to Donovan Mitchell. He's deserving of a spot here as well. Another controversial one, I think, but I think he's deserving. Kristaps Porzingis for Washington. A bit of a resurgence this year. He's at 22.4 points per game, 8.9 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 48% shooting from the field, 80% from the line, tossing a steal and 1.5 blocks per game. And that's a good reason why he deserves. Now, his team, of course, is floundering, and some voters will kind of shy away from picking up Porzingis, or putting Porzingis on the All-Star team. But I think just based on how he helps his team out there on offense and defense, he should be considered for the All-Star game. Up next, we got Jaylen Brown, second selection here for Boston. 26.4 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 50% from the field, 81% from the line, 1.2 steals per game there as well. Teaming up with Tatum to be the best 1-2 punch in the league. Brown would be the number one player on at least 2/3 of the teams in the NBA, which in itself is deserving of a spot for the game here as well. Very dynamic scorer. Up next, of course, being a Toronto Raptors fan, I feel a little pressure putting this name on the list. Pascal Siakam, 25.0 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, 6.8 assists on 48% shooting from the field, 77% from the line, tossing a steal as well. He's become the main facilitator in Toronto, and of course, he's the biggest scorer and premier rebounder there for the team. He's basically doing it all. Again, Toronto is not really doing well as a team, especially right now. But you can't overlook the production that Siakam has had. He's certainly playing it at an all-star level and is deserving of a spot, in my mind, on that team. Up next, in Atlanta, we have Trae Young at 27.3 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 10.0 assists on 41% shooting from the field, 90% from the line. He is looking like the move for DeJounte Murray to enter that squad there as well. They're starting to kind of iron out there a little bit. Their team is seeing some success. And Trae Young is starting to assert himself in that offense. Still, he was off to a pretty cold start to start the year. For shooting especially here, his shooting percentage has creeped back over 40%, which is good to see. Hoping to see that kind of ends up around 43-44% by the end of the year. But even at the numbers that he's got right now, he's an integral part to that team and is deserving a spot here too. Next up, we're going to go Bam Adebayo for the Miami Heat. This one's a little bit of a tough one because there is legitimately 3 players on the Heat that are fringe all-stars. Toss in Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero there as well. It makes that decision very difficult to make. But Adebayo is my choice. 20.7 points per game, 9.8 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 53% from the field, 84% from the line, tossing a steal. He is the backbone of that team. He really is. You look at, his metrics and what he does here for a center. Undersized, of course, but he's got heart and he's got grit. And he can hang in there with the best of them. I think he's deserving of a spot. Again, rather controversial, but I think he's done enough to be able to deserve a spot on the team. Last but not least, a bit of a resurgence here as well. I was a little nervous to see how he would turn out, and I think I had him down as a do not pick option for my fantasy teams. James Harden for Philadelphia. 21.9 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 10.5 assists, 43% from the field, 88% from the line, and he's got 1.3 steals per game there as well. There's a lot of offense to be had in Philadelphia between Embiid, Harden, Maxey, of course, who was missing time here, who could have had a shot at the All-Star game should he have remained healthy. And then we had Harris there as well, who's having a pretty solid year given the opportunity. Harden, I think the reason why he makes it in here is the assist totals. 10.5 assists is still elite. There's not a whole lot of players out there averaging 10 or more. So I think he is worthy of the spots there. His shooting percentages are a little down. Not making nearly as many threes, not scoring as many points as he used to, but he's still a fundamental player here in the league, and he's proven me wrong this year. I thought he would do far worse, and I think he's deserving of a spot here on the squad. All right, let's move over to the West. We're going to start off in Golden State. Steph Curry, of course, injured as it stands right now. I don't know if he's going to make himself available for the All-Star game. We'll see. But as it stands, he's for sure worthy. 30 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 50% from the field, 92% from the line, tossing a steal. That team, of course, it's kind of middling right now. There's a lot of injuries, a lot of players who are getting back to form. You know, Steph Curry has been the staple of that team for years and years, and I think, you know, definitely deserving of a spot here for the West. Next up, of course, the name you'll see on the ballot here, probably until he retires, LeBron. 27 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 49% shooting from the field, 71 from the line, 1.2 steals per game there as well. There's not much I can say here. What he's doing at his age is unheard of, and you know, he is still the focal point of a improving Los Angeles Lakers squad. May actually make a run for a potential playoff spot this year if they can keep up on their current run. LeBron has a lot to do with that. Jokic is next here for Denver. 25.2 points per game, 10.9 rebounds, 9.0 assists, 62% from the field, 80% from the line, 1.5 steals per game there as well. He's the fantasy darling, and really, if you look at him in playing, real basketball, he is the real deal here as well. The premier passing big in the league. Everybody prototypes off of Nikola Jokic. For good reason. He's a difficult person to stop. He's a difficult person to clear from the lane, and he's a premier scorer. So hats off to Jokic. He's doing it again this year. Potential MVP. We shall see how it turns out here once the year is done, but certainly in the books here for the All-Star game. Up next in Dallas, Luka, 32.5 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, 8.6 assists, 49% shooting from the field, 73% from the line, 1.6 steals there as well. Another deserving candidate, one of the premier young players in the league. Now this is his 5th season, I believe. So he's cemented himself as not just a flash out of the gate. He's here to stay. He's going to be producing at a high clip. The things that he does, I'm baffled by the things that he does for his size. And by that, I mean he's a larger guard, slower guard, but he just can get to spots here, and he has incredible touch and phenomenal vision there as well. So Doncic definitely deserving of a spot in this year's game. And last, this is a bit of a tough one for me. I'm going with Devin Booker for the Phoenix Suns. 28 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 48% shooting from the field, 85% from the line. There's a few names I could have put in that 5th spot here, but I think Booker's the most deserving. Definitely a sharp shooter for the Suns, and he's been an integral part of that team's success here over the last couple of years, and it's carried forward to this year here as well. Well deserving of a spot. I don't know if he deserves a starting nod, but I think over the names I have left here, I could see enough reason to put him in. Going to some of the reserves here. First up in LA, we have Anthony Davis, 27.4 points per game, 12.1 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 59% shooting from the field, 83% shooting from the line, 1.3 steals, 2.1 blocks. This was the name that I thought I could squeeze in other than Booker, but I had Jokic there as already. It's kind of hard to kind of place another true center in that spot, or another center in that spot here, so I went with Booker. But Anthony Davis certainly deserving, and arguably should be in the starting 5. When healthy and motivated, he is a top 3 player in the league. Up next here, Ja Morant, 26.7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 7.7 assists, 45% shooting from the field, 73 from the line, 1.1 steals there as well. The human highlight reel should make it to the All-Star game here based on flash alone. He carries a huge name and is... he would be a shoo-in if not for his shooting percentages of late. He's dropping in both free throws and field goal percentages, which is kind of hurting him a little bit there. But if he can return that to form, he could potentially be a starter. He's got the skill set to be a starter in the All-Star game for the West. Next up here as well, his draft mate here, Zion Williamson, 25.2 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 60% from the field, 71% from the line, 1.2 steals. Like Morant, Zion is on a tear on a vastly improved Pelicans squad that has a run at a really high playoff spot here this year. You can't really duplicate a player like Zion because he's so fast and so big. On defense, you just kind of want to get out the way so that he can just do what he needs to do. Another one that I had a hard time trying to figure out where to place in this year's list here, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, OKC. 31.3 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 50% shooting from the field, 93% from the line, 1.7 steals, 1.0 blocks. He's been doing a little bit of everything. The sole reason why OKC is even competitive this year, been huge for fantasy teams here across the board. But he's served up some really, really good numbers. He is really good in motion. He's the premier point getter in the paint for a guard. You know, so much to say that's good about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he's very deserving of a spot, his first spot for an All-Star game here this year. Next up, we have De'Aaron Fox, 23.2 points per game, 5.0 rebounds, 5.6 assists on 50% shooting from the field, 80% from the line, 1.0 steals per game there as well. He's the beneficiary of a revamped, revved up offensive system in Sacramento between him and Sabonis, who is another one that would be a good consideration here for the All-Star game. It didn't have much of a space there for him. Fox got off to a blazing start to start off this year. Cooled down a little bit since then, but I think he's going to provide the team with much needed scoring and distribution here throughout the rest of the year, and should be considered at least for a spot on the All-Star team here this year. Next up in Minnesota, we have Anthony Edwards, 23 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 45% shooting from the field, 76% from the line, 1.8 steals to toss in there as well. A lot of people were thinking Karl-Anthony Towns or perhaps Rudy Gobert would be coming out from this team here, but of course, Robert's had some difficulty adjusting. Towns has been injured, so Anthony Edwards has been filling the slack here and been doing it quite well. Another one that got off to a bit of a slow start, but has certainly picked it up here towards the second quarter of this season. Especially in the steals department, he's among the league leaders with the amount of steals that he's getting, 1.8 per game. I imagine that his offensive numbers will continue to rise as the season goes on. He will be more in consideration of first team or second team NBA when the season ends, but I think he is deserving as well as another spot here on the All-Star team here this year. And then last but not least, we have Damian Lillard, 28.3 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, 7.0 assists, 46% from the field, 90% from the line. The only thing keeping him back is possibly the amount of time that he's missed this year, but I think once the votes are in, he should be able to qualify and should be a shoo-in for a spot here as well for the All-Star game. Dame has been clutch. He's been a big three-point scorer and has been a very good distributor throughout his career, and this year is no different. So he should be representing the West here, I believe, this year for the All-Star game. And that does it here for my picks. If there's anybody that you think I missed here, please make a comment here in the comment section down below. Make sure you also like the video and subscribe to the channel, and do that soon because we do have a subscriber group giveaway, which we're going to be talking about here right now. Once we reach 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be giving away this Panini Prism Anthony Edwards Slab PSA 9 for free. Subscribe today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and when the time comes, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, I will be doing a giveaway for that slab. So stay tuned to the channel here for that. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys again for watching. We're going to sign off for now, but we're going to catch you guys on our next episode.